Think we are currently live, folks. All right, welcome everyone. We're all excited to have you guys jumping on this webinar today. We know you folks have some really busy schedules, so we are really thankful that you could get on and join us. And we are just going to sit tight here just for a minute, make sure that everybody can join in and get settled. So if anybody needs to, while people are filing in here, please feel free to go get some more coffee, re up on some water. We're just going to continue to let some people roll in here. And I am coming to you live from our office here in Bozeman, Montana. And looking outside right now, winter's starting a little late for us this year. So we're going to take that. That's all good for us here in Montana. We'll wait just a little bit longer, just so some more people can get in. And hello, Elijah one from Lafayette. Tammy, good morning. John from Atlanta, good morning. Patricia, thanks for jumping on. Or afternoon for some of you folks. And we wait just a bit longer. I know it
Hey,
takes.
Marlon. Hi, David.
Good to see some familiar names here.
Yes.
Yeah.
We're amongst
Um,
friends.
We
I
have
think
people
you
from
guys
all over the place.
everywhere.
Arizona, New York, Arizona, Georgia,
Indeed.
Cleveland. Is anyone from Boston?
Anybody from the New England area? I'm sure we got a couple of people, but I think we'll probably be okay to get rocking and rolling now, folks, since we're just a bit past the hour. So I'll go ahead and get us started. And again, we appreciate all of you joining us today. And my name is Chris Johnson. I'm the manager of business development here at XYPN. And I'm excited to host today's webinar titled Reach Your Niche, a Firm Owner's Guide to Social Media. And today we have XYPN members and social media gurus Sylvia Mannett and Daniel Kopp joining us. And we're so happy you guys could jump on today. And before I turn it over to you guys, there are a few housekeeping items I just wanted to cover briefly. If all the attendees could just look on the right hand side here, I know some of you already noticed the first tab, which is the chat function. So please feel free to continue to add to the conversation today. But if you have any questions for Sylvia or Daniel throughout the presentation today, there is a Q&A module right below the chat function. So if any of you have any questions for these great folks today, please feel free to submit them there, and we'll be addressing those at the end of the presentation. And then one last quick reminder, folks, is that we do host these free webinars every single month. And next month, it will be on the first Wednesday, which is the 7th. So please be sure to register for next month's webinar. Are you sure? Having the conversation with your partner about making the leap into entrepreneurship. And that presentation is going to be with our CEO and co-founder, Alan Moore, as well as XYPN members, Sarah Ponder and Brandon Judikis. So we'll post a link to register for that in the chat. And I think that's it for me, Sylvia and Daniel. I'll kick it over to you guys now.
Perfect.
Go
Thank
ahead, Sylvia.
you. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here. My name is Sylvia Manent. I actually started my business in 2020, so I've been doing this almost for about 3 years. And I use a lot of Instagram to grow my practice, so that's mostly where most of my clients come from. And it's really fun, and I'm hoping to kind of share a little bit of my strategies with you all today, because I don't really do any cold calling or networking or golf tournaments, anything like that. So it is possible to grow a practice 100% through social media.
Yes, and I'm so excited to be here with Sylvia. We used to be somewhat neighbors. I used to live in the Boston area. Last year, moved down to sunny Sarasota, Florida, enjoying the life down here. My firm turns 4 this month, so it's super exciting to kind of celebrate that milestone. And I certainly would not be here without XYPN, so it's a privilege to give back to the network and kind of share best practices, lesson learned of what's going on along the way. So my firm is Wise Stewardship Financial Planning. I specialize in working with 2 niches. We'll talk about kind of how that works. On one side of the practice is active duty military. That's really narrowed over time. So now it's more active duty military officers married to each other, pursuing an aggressive savings path on a road to financial independence, often in their early 40s, thanks to some of the military benefits like pension. I'm an Air Force veteran, so I served 9 years before launching this firm as a career changer. Had some financial counseling experience in there too. The other side of my practice, I work and specialize in working with widows. Started pretty generic at that level and then has refined that down. So the niche now, I would define it as widows in their 30s, 40s, and 50s who are dealing with financial anxiety in addition to grief as they step into that role of kind of that household CFO, the managing the finances for the first time in their adult lives. Oftentimes, they're dealing with money script from a financial money avoidance kind of background. So I use a lot of financial therapy interventions after getting my master's at Kansas State in that program. So they also have kids in the picture and pain points. All this is relevant because a lot of what we're going to talk about today, if you don't already have a niche, I think one of the questions submitted ahead of time is, what do you do if you don't have a niche? Well, this gets a little bit more difficult because Sylvia and I are going to talk about how we use our different social media focus. So she's heavily into Instagram. I don't use it at all. Why? Because my ideal client isn't on Instagram for the most part. So my widow clients, I've gotten the majority of them on social media through Facebook and specifically Facebook groups. We're going to talk about that. And on the professional side, using COI referrals, Center of Influence referrals, leveraging LinkedIn. But my military clients, for the most part, aren't there, nor are the widow clients. So it's connecting with other professionals. So that's kind of a quick preview, and look forward to sharing and talking about a bunch of great stuff here.
Excellent. So, do we start off by sharing some of the questions that they asked us, or what do you think is the best way to move forward, Daniel?
Well, I would love to hear, Sylvia, kind of how you got started in Instagram first, and we can go from there because tell us a little bit more about who your ideal client is and why they like you so much and how they've attracted to your business through Instagram.
So thank you. So one of the things, so my ideal client, when I first started my business, I thought I was going to do widows. Then I thought I was going to do doctors. Then I thought I was going to do like anybody with that was young. And so pretty much I didn't really like I kind of kept switching niches because I was like, I can't really find my ideal client. And at the end of the day, what happened is I started to post on Instagram and my ideal client started to find me. And I started to find that many of my clients were actually small business owners or coaches or creators. So right at the beginning, I was kind of working with anybody that was young and 9 to 5 as well as coaches. Now I'm primarily only focused on self-employed coaches, mentors, leadership, whatever you want to call them. And most of my clients are 100% on Instagram selling their courses, their programs there. So that's how they find me, right? And when they're typing in financial advisor on Instagram, I'm one of the first people that comes up because I've done so much content, and that now my ideal clients, for them even Google is too much for them. It's like too confusing. They're like, let me just go on Instagram. It's what I know. And so for me it was just so fun. I could pull up my phone and like start like creating a story, very easy, very natural, because I did try to do YouTube, I tried to do LinkedIn, I tried to do all the things. And then at the end of the day, I remember one of my coaches was like, just stick to one platform that you like, right? Unless you're making $1 million, like stick to one platform that you really like and that it's easy for you and that you can be sustainable. And for me, that was Instagram. But what about you, Daniel? How did you get started with really using LinkedIn and Google Ads?
Yeah, so glad you mentioned Google Ads there. I want to pause real quick here and just emphasize something to the audience in case they weren't 100% paying attention. You started out with how many different niches before you found the one that worked for you?
I pretty much like 4 or 5,
Okay.
right? I just kept switching. And at the end of the day, I think one of the things that worked, at least for me, was to see who was actually attracted to me and who did I find. And for me, when I was working with these coaches and they were making, 3, 4, $500,000, I loved it because it not only did they have the money to pay for my services, but I actually became a better business owner because of them, because I learned a lot from them as well. And that's kind of
Exactly.
what I realized. I wanted to work with people that were like really like way smarter than me so I could be a little bit better.
And that was okay, and it's working for you because you found it. You even said another phrase too. I just want to emphasize for the listeners is this idea that you found what you were good at and what you like doing, so it was easy to be consistent than things that weren't a natural fit, right? So some of the keys to social media marketing is defining your ideal client. We're going to talk more about that, and then finding where they're at, and then maintaining consistency in a way that, if you imagine the Venn diagram, thing that overlaps with what you like doing and what you're good at, and also resonates with that ideal client where they're at. So that's what I found. What worked for me is, especially early on in my business, when many of you, especially you're there, right, you have way more time than clients. So what are you going to do with that time, and how do you let people know about your skill sets? So Google Ads is one of the things that I started running. I talked about it last year at XYPN Live. And I've actually had the privilege to share with a couple of XYPN study groups too since then, is targeting keywords related to my niche that then drive people to the website, and then funnels that kind of sort them from there. Facebook groups, I stumbled into this one kind of by accident, because I mentioned earlier I was an Air Force veteran. I didn't mention, but I'm a widower myself. So I've gone on that grief journey. And even before I launched my RIA, or even thought about becoming a financial planner, I have been part of groups where military people were in there talking about finance, and where widowed people were there just commiserating through the venture of social media, Facebook groups specifically. And so I was trying to be helpful, and then I accidentally stumbled into this fact that as I was helpful, as I shared content, talked about what I was learning, or answered questions for people, it automatically created an audience that was building the know, like, and trust factor. I didn't intend to do it, but it worked out that well. So the way I think about it, and I want you to imagine, especially for a lot of these Facebook groups, is Facebook pages. My experience is they're dead. Don't even bother. I mean, maybe have one just so nobody squats on it. But finding a way for you to be engaged in groups where people are asking about it. Imagine, if you will, that you walk into a giant, say, audience, concert hall or auditorium, where there are hundreds, maybe thousands, maybe tens of thousands people there that could be potentially in that group that you would define as your ideal client. Meanwhile, up on stage, if you will, a group has formed, and they come up to a microphone and they shout or a question to the audience, like, "What should I do about X, Y, and Z?" Or, "I have this problem, help." Think of the questions that you've seen amongst people. And then you get a chance to come up, and then in front of not just answering that person's question, but everybody who's there, listen to the answer that you give. And what I have found over the years is, not necessarily the people that I engage with answer the question. In fact, I think almost without exception, maybe one or two, do those people ever reach out to me. But instead, when I show up and I add value and I answer questions and be extremely helpful, is I'll get a message from one of those invisible listeners, right? "Hey, Daniel, I saw you answer this question. I have a similar problem. Can we talk?" Right now, I did this in a way that was not salesy. I'm not going in and saying, "Oh, by the way, I'm Daniel, and I run this financial planning firm, and I do these things." Right? I would occasionally explain my expertise. I'm a fee only financial planner. This is the group that I specialize in working with. But it was pretty low key, right? Just a form of content marketing in a way that helped there. So that kind of gave me an initial start. And then as more people watched me do this over time, building trust, getting to know the group admins, critical. And then two, secondary part of that is other people would tag me and say, "Hey, Daniel, you should chime in, answer this question." So it kind of built and grew from there.
Yeah, I love it. I think one of the things that I'm most impressed by you is that you're pretty much not really taking on more clients anymore. You're kind of just maintenance, in terms of kind of growing your business, because you've done so well with it. But so tell us a little bit about more of like these Facebook groups. How did you find these Facebook groups? What were you searching for, especially, with the widows and the Air Force? Yeah.
Yeah. So again, just going in and searching. Some of these groups are open in the sense that you can find them and then ask permission to join. Other of them are closed, in which case you kind of go to a by name. So a lot of the widow groups that I got a part of, I got connected because getting to know through, again, tying it back to LinkedIn, some of that synergy of centers of influence that would be grief counselors or mental health therapists who are working with people who could kind of point to resources. I went to training programs like Grief Share. I went to conferences like Modern Widows Club and Soaring Spirits and other things, and I got to know people in real life that then said, "Oh, Daniel, have you a part of this group? You should come and join," and kind of just grew from there. Now, eventually, the span of control got so much that I had to focus down to the ones that were the most productive, right? So, and early on, just for time commitment wise, I was probably spending, 1 to 2 hours a day in that first 1 to 2 years of running the firm. Now I'm doing, only if somebody tags me or something. But to Sylvia's point, my growth is much less due to some of the other stuff there. What about
Perfect.
you, Sylvia? Talk
Oh, I
about how
was
you
going to
kind
ask
of
you about,
engaged.
I was going to go through the questions and kind of start asking you about how you optimize your website and all the things for website, but you can go ahead. Or
Well, yeah, because I wanted to get your take too on engagement, right? Because it's not just enough to post on social media. The illustration that I've heard here is, imagine you went to a social networking event and you walked in and you didn't go up and say hi to anybody. You didn't shake hands. You kind of just paused in the middle of the room and started shouting, "I'm so and so, and I do this work." And people looking at you like all kind of weird, right? Social is about engagement and conversations. How do you do that on Instagram?
So that's a great point. And I think a lot of financial advisors, a lot of people that are growing their business, they're focusing on followers and they're focusing on likes. And they're not actually focusing on creating a really true connection. And I'm going to say something that I have clients that make over $500,000 a year and they only have 2,000 followers.
Yeah.
And right, and I have other clients that have come to me or prospects that had 100,000 followers and didn't even make 80,000. So I think one of the most important things for people to realize, especially when you're starting your business, is don't get obsessed with the vanity metrics because it's way
Yes.
better to have a really, really targeted group. I other clients of mine, 600 followers and they're making six, seven, like six figures. So I think one of the most important things is you can post, but if people are not taking action, that's going to be a problem. And so, one of the things that I would always recommend, whether you're on Instagram or on LinkedIn or really on any platform, is you need to get their email address as soon as you can, right? You have to capture their email because
Yes.
Instagram, like just 2 days ago, a lot of people's Instagram ads were disabled. Same with LinkedIn. I'm sure that's happened before. A lot of the times you do not own the platform. And so
Yes.
instead of, yeah, right. So you stop focusing so much on the vanity metrics because a lot of people, you either want to be an influencer and have 100,000 followers and not make any, or
Right.
you actually want to be a true business owner and have really good. And so one of the things that I would focus on is either have a free training, which is what I've done. I actually have, so on my Instagram, I've just focused on one funnel. Again, you don't need at least in my opinion, you don't need to have a lead magnet over here, then a webinar over here, then this other lead magnet over there. Focus, like, especially when you're starting out, focus on one platform that you like, whether it's LinkedIn, Instagram, whatever, and get them into your funnel as soon as you can. Stop focusing on the likes, on the shares, on the whatever. At the end of the day, that's not money related. What's going to be money is a direct correspondence of how many people enter your funnel. And so what you need to focus on is making sure, right? Like the way I set it up, and I can explain a little bit of how I do it is I post a reel, right? So my reels, for those of you that don't know, Instagram has a couple different ways to to kind of show your content, and reels are small little videos, kind of like TikToks. And Instagram is pushing it out because Instagram is very scared of TikTok because TikTok is taking it over. Clearly, you can see on Facebook's stock this year how they're doing, and so they're really pushing it, right? And so I think the most important thing is for people to either create a reel, and as soon if you go on my Instagram, you'll see anytime I post something, I'm trying to get people into my email list. I'm trying to get people into my funnel. And I share like either a free training, or maybe I tell them DM me VIP if you want to be like an ongoing client. But I really want to know. I have to have people are really, they don't know what they're lazy. They know that they need to like and things, but get them into your funnel and either do either a freebie or a webinar. I believe webinars for me convert better, especially for if you have a lower ticket kind of offer, and we can go into that a little bit more. But don't try to do all the things. I think there's too much Twitter, LinkedIn, blah blah blah. Pick one and just get them into your funnel, and at the end of the day, get them to book a call with you, because your success in this business is a complete reflection of how many calls you have on your calendar. So instead of focusing on the likes, I always tell people that I'm like, At the beginning, was focusing too much on followers, and then I realized I had big clients that only had 2,000, but they were really nurturing them on their email list. So, Daniel, what about you? How do
Yeah. So
you?
yeah,
Go
so
ahead.
that's a great point about, again, what kind of business are we in, right? If you're trying to build a financial planning practice, you're getting clients rather than an affiliate marketer selling, ads or clicks or, small commissions. So, I first heard about this concept from Seth Godin, who copied it or took it from Kevin Kelly, this idea of 1,000 core fans, 1,000 true fans. So I've had people ask me the question, like, how narrow is my niche? And anecdotally, I will ask them, and certainly talking with other people within XY, is if there's at least 1,000 people out there who could find you, not that there's 1,000 people who could find you in that core niche, then you're not narrow enough necessarily. So, like, who are those people? Where are they at? And then how do you go and start to nurture them, find out where they're at, their pain points? To Sylvia's point, right? You found what works for you. One of the books that I can highly recommend in this space is in marketing. You don't often know what works until you try it, right? And analysis paralysis can grip all of us, especially those of us that might be more planning, financial planner oriented. So one of the books that really helped me early on in my practice, and I actually try to go back every year and read it, is a book called Alchemy: The Dark Art and Curious Science of Creating Magic in Brands, Business, and Life by Rory Sutherland. So he was the vice president at Ogilvy, great British marketing firm, and he talks in there about some of these valuable lessons about these unwritten rules and metrics that allow you to have success. So to Sylvia's point, yeah, don't focus on the vanity stuff, focus on what works. And Carl Richards even talked about this just at the XYPN Live keynote, right? You don't know what the future is going to be with your marketing plan, especially. Take one step forward, try, iterate, see what you're starting to gain momentum on, and start doubling down on that and pivot away from what doesn't work. So each of these things is going to be unique to your business. So you can take inspiration and tips from us, but the biggest thing is just try some more and see what works.
Absolutely. And I think one of the things that I learned the most is I know, and we can talk a little bit about this because of like courses and things like that. But looking back at everything that I've done, a lot of the times my higher ticket products and services and clients were the ones that were driving the business and the success of the business. And so sometimes I think advisors focus on promoting too low ticket offers, and at the end of the day that's not going to pay your bills. I mean, being realistic, right? And then people see people that have been very successful selling like $47 budget spreadsheets and things like that. That's just not going to work. And so I would just focus on increasing as much as you can your prices. And at the same time, when you're picking your niche, and Andrew, I know Andrew posted a question, I'll get to that. But when you're picking your niche, it has to be someone you can relate to, in the fact, Daniel, he relates to both his niches. He likes them, and they also have the budget, the money, right? If and I think people, you have to have those three things, because if you don't, at the end of the day, you're going to get burned out if you start to pick a niche and they don't want to pay for things. And I've even seen it. So I have two types of services. One of them is an online course, because I was having people come to me that couldn't really afford my VIP day, which I charge 25 to 3,500, depending if you're a business owner or not. And some people just didn't want to pay, or it's a different mindset, especially with consumers. So I think one thing that I learned that really helped me is that consumers and business owners think very differently, right? Consumers, or new business owners, they're going to be more like lower ticket, more nurturing, and they're not going to buy as quickly. Right. So when they buy, they're going to really think about it. And I'm just generalizing, but this is kind of what I've seen. They're going to take their time to think about it. And, oh, I don't know, $1,000, that's a lot of money, blah, blah, blah. When I have my self-employed business owners, 35 grand, like, they don't even want to talk to me on the phone. They're like, no, I know I need this. Boom. Right. And so for me, right, I love those two people, but I love my business owners more. and
Yeah,
so
yeah,
and so you just need to focus on a niche that's not going to be a pain in the butt.
yeah.
Just
That's a
saying
good
that.
point. Yeah.
Mhm.
I,
So
I also want to mention here, so XYPN has some great resources for members in the XYPN Academy. So again, by my own career story as a career changer, right? Air Force officer. I have no marketing background. My undergrad was in economics. I got a master's in strategic leadership, and then one in financial therapy and financial planning. So I learned so much of this stuff, like by those book resources, but also because of some of the great coaching. Carolyn did a fantastic several courses within the XYPN Academy that have helped grow these muscles. So we're talking about ideas that might be unfamiliar to you, how to build a funnel, wanting more exposure and traffic to your website. There are phenomenal resources within XYPN. And then, if you haven't figured out already, there's this amazing thing called community that
Mhm.
XYPN members have, that so many people have paid it forward to me, helped me, gave me advice along the way. So I just wanted to make sure that those are something that part of this conversation. I certainly wouldn't be here without all that kind of support.
I love that. Daniel, there's some questions. So you mentioned LinkedIn and Google Ads have been the most success. How long should like a firm owner plan to work at social media and LinkedIn before they find success? Is it 1 year, 2 years, 3 years?
Okay, so Google Ads are slightly different because it's not exactly social media, right? You're paying for placement, so you're kind of shortcutting the SEO cycle, so you can build credibility, search terms, and organically rise to the top of like Google search results. I liked Google Ads because it just put me at the top right there. So I always recommend people, you at a minimum, if you're going to run Google Ads, and again, you want to spend less by having a tight niche, because the keyword, you can pay somewhere in the range of like $35 to $45 for like financial planner near me. I mean, that's a going range for that keyword. Whereas I'm paying, $2 to $3 a click for a term like Christian financial advisor for widows, just because my niche is that much narrower. There's less competition, higher relevance for my website. So you need at least 6 months, in my opinion, and ideally 12 months to kind of run a campaign. Because to your point, right, I'm not just driving them to my website and then hoping they book a call. The trans theoretical model of change reminds us that on average, there's a lot of steps before people are ready to take action. And some research has shown only about 20% of people are ever actually. So if I drive 5 people or 10 people to my website, right? So if I drive 10 people, only 1 to 2 of them are actually going to be ready to book a call today because they're a pain point. And that's an ideal client, even there. So you need to find ways to stay top of mind. So I like MailerLite, LITE, that I think they'll post in the chat here. It's a tool. So I have plugins on my WordPress website that then capture those emails. With Zapier, it integrates with Wealthbox, it integrates with Calendly, with everything that comes together, and allows me, to Sylvia's point, to drip on them over time, where I show up and add value. Because I hear starting my 5th year of business, right, am signing clients that join my email list after something I did on Facebook groups or Google Ads 1, 2, 3 years ago, because they just weren't ready. On LinkedIn, it has certainly taken me a while within the widowed space, because it took me a while to get known there. Again, going to these conferences helped jumpstart a lot of these relationships. So now I'm not just a face on LinkedIn, but we've shook hands, we've talked. And then the military space was a little easier because I came from that world. I had done some blogging, counseling, speaking in the personal finance space. So shortcut that way. But you want to find ways to stay top of mind. So on LinkedIn, my stay top of mind strategy is very different, because I want to be in front of other financial planners, oftentimes therapists, counselors, people in that military or widowed space. So oftentimes they're not going to be the one that becomes a client, but they'll be, oh yeah, Daniel's talking about X, Y, and Z. I just did a post yesterday talking about a portal where you can help clients search for insurance policies from their deceased members, right? That wasn't aimed at my niche client. That's aimed at my network, help them show, oh, Daniel's a guy to go to about questions or refer clients to. That has taken 2 to 3 years to really get going for those COI referrals. It takes time to people to build that trust factor over.
Absolutely. I cannot emphasize this enough. So when you launch a service or a product, if let's just say if you launch it to 100 people, 100 people see it, most likely it's going to be less than 2% are going to buy right away. And on average, some of my online course clients have actually been on my like following me or on my list for 6 months on average. Some of them take less, others take longer. And so if you're always focusing on getting new leads and getting new, like new, a lot of the times you have a hot audience or warm audience, either your email list or your followers already. They just need like a jump. And so I launched my online course last year, but I did another launch this summer, and
Hmm.
so many people that bought had been on my list for 2 years. And
Yeah.
so I know that's not what people want to hear, but you definitely have to have the long game in this area, right? There's going to be 2% of people that are going to buy right away, especially the people that are in so much pain. They're like, I need this, or but there's also a lot of people that it's not the right time because they either haven't started a business yet, in my case, or they haven't had a huge tax bill, and but at the end of the day, you need to know like what is so painful that they're going to pick up the phone and call you. In my case, they're in pain when they have when they've made it so big that they have a huge tax bill and they're like,
Yes.
crap, like
Yes.
right. So like for that's like the pain where they know, like I know very clearly if someone has a huge tax bill and they need help either making sure they keep their taxes low and investing it. That's how painful it is. But some people are not in enough pain to call you, but they will, right? And for example, if I lose my husband, I will call Daniel if he's been top of mind, or I will let someone know. But a lot of the time you may not see. So you should keep posting, or you should either you if you don't want to post every day, just do ads. Either it's going to be Google ads or Facebook ads. I've done Facebook ads before. When Reels came out, they also that was really beneficial for me. But I'm always trying to be top of mind. I'm always trying to be a little bit provocative so that my posts show up more and people remember me. And that I think has been very, very helpful for a lot of people, for me and my business.
Hmm. Yeah, that's good. Let's build on that and talk about this idea of how so your what is your frequency pace that's worked for you? Because again, it needs to be sustainable, right? So my example on LinkedIn, I'm posting 3-ish times a week because anything more than that gets too much. What have you found in Instagram?
Yeah, so Instagram, in my ideal, I post every day. So one day I'll post a reel, and another day I'll post a quote. So what I do is it's because for me it's been the least I'm always trying to do the least amount of work and the highest impact,
Yeah.
right? And I know that reels do really well in terms of shareability. My reels usually get 5 to 6 thousand views, and my posts get a lot of reshares whenever I post stuff. And you'll see if you go on my Instagram, Wealth Financial Advisor, I post some provocative things. But at the end of the day, that's getting people to share, remember me. And then I'm like, okay, go to my email list, watch my webinar, whatever. Sometimes I've had my boyfriend and my mom yell at me for some of the things that I post, but I'm like, Mom, it's making me money. And then she's like, oh, okay.
Well, good
And
marketing should repel as much as it attracts, right? Because again, you don't need 100,000 people. You need your however many number of clients. And to your point about vanity metrics, you want people who really like you, who are ready to say yes.
exactly. And just as an example, so 3 days ago, I posted a post and it was very, very polarizing and a little bit offensive. And I think a lot of people, right? It was basically you had like a winner's mindset or a loser's mindset. And I was like, something around that, the fact that you do the work, you do the hard work now so that you can live easily later, instead of doing the easy work now so then you have to live hard later, something like that. Anyways, so I made it a little bit edgy, and the only people that responded well were like the people that were working really hard to grow their businesses, to like do the hard things. I had a bunch of hate mail being like, how dare you say stuff like that? And for me, that was like, great. That's what you said. Like, I'm repelling people. I'm doing something right.
Hmm.
Right. And so I started getting a lot of comments, and it's on my Instagram. You can see the comments, but basically people telling me that I was wrong. But that's exactly what I wanted to do, because that's of the people that really liked the post and shared it and everything were my ideal clients.
Well,
So
and you have to trick the algorithm, or at least work with the algorithm, right?
yeah,
There's that golden hour where if you post something out there, they're testing it out. Is this going to work? Should we put this in more people's feeds? Crickets.
yeah,
Nope. Goes away. So
exactly.
engagement is good, right? And that goes back to the idea we talked about earlier about conversations. You're out there doing more than just shouting at the world.
Yes, exactly. And don't be afraid to be polarizing, because at the end of the day, today attention is currency. And people, I don't know where I read that people get like 5 to 6 thousand ads a day or something like that, or not ads, just like things to look at. And at the end of the day, you have to stop the scroll. You have to stop. You have to get someone to see, listen to what you need. And a lot of the times, I think that as advisors, we don't work in hard enough. And I've actually spoken to one of my colleagues, Marlon, who's on here, but we've spoken about at the beginning, we don't work hard enough to understand our target audience. We think we know, but if I go to most financial advisors' websites, they're all saying fiduciary fee only. Nobody knows what that means. Like
Yes.
nobody knows what that means.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
so stop saying big words to make you sound smart. You're not going to get any calls from people just by like vanity things.
And that's the beauty of niching down, going deeper, finding out what that specific
Mhm.
is, so you can really do that. And that's having a consistent brand voice. And it's okay if it takes you a while to find what that looks like. I want to circle back. I went and just looked up a number real quick here. Sylvia, you said earlier a 2% number. Is that what you've historically found for conversions?
That's historically what I found for if you send something to an email list of 100 people, 2% will probably buy right away. Or if
Okay.
you do like something like that. And
Yeah.
that's about average. That's industry average.
Anecdotally, so I just went and looked up mine on, so when I'm running my Google Ads campaign, because that's when I track the most, so I have about a 3% conversion rate. Everybody who clicks on the ad, who books a consultation or otherwise reaches out to me right away. Now, that doesn't mean that they all sign on and become clients. Some of them I screen out because it's not the best fit there. So again, back to numbers, metrics, right? So if you're looking at social media traffic, websites, things like that, 1 to 3% would be something in the range of what you're looking for conversion. So if if your email list is small, that's okay, right? But you got to grow it. Same thing with kind of your social media following, and kind of use that to potentially reverse engineer some of that math.
And Daniel, I think we need to let people know and to remember that if you don't want to be posting every day, totally fine because you don't enjoy it, but run ads. Like you're either gonna have to do work or you're gonna have to use money. But
Or do the long game where you're investing in SEO, whether you're doing that for yourself, but it does take time
it
for
takes
that.
time. It takes work.
Yeah, yeah.
And you have to take work because you have to blog, you have to make sure that the SEO is always staying on top of mind and things like that.
Well, and stuff changes too. I was even just watching Samantha Russell talk about one of the things on LinkedIn. She's a great person to follow on LinkedIn. She's the chief evangelist at FMG, and Google is starting to move to this zero-click content where they're going to post more and more of the information right there. And like, I'm going to probably start adding in more YouTube videos and building up my channel there to reflect that, because they're going to try to put more stuff organically right there on the page, akin to what many of these other social networks are doing. So staying on top of trends. So I mentioned earlier, Facebook groups have been a great success for me, but as Facebook is dying more or less, right?
It is.
Some of the Pew research that's come out, like especially amongst younger age segments. So it's working well for me still in my widow age segment, so like 50, 40s and 50s, but younger people are just not there anymore. So certainly you have to be able to evolve and adapt. And what we're sharing is what working now and in the recent past, but don't hold us to it. If you come back to us in 3 years, be like, it's all different. Well, yeah.
Well, Well, again, really stop focusing so much on the platform and get the email list because you own that email. You can always
Yes.
email your list and say, I'm now on TikTok. Come follow me there. But if you're going to be
Yeah.
on TikTok, get them into your funnel, get them into booking a call, or get them to watch your webinar if you're selling a course. But just get the email and stop. Like the vanity breakfasts are great for laughing, but again, remember the funnel and don't do more than one. Just stick to one funnel.
Yeah, we've talked about funnels a couple of times. This is The Truth About Digital Marketing for Financial Advisors by Kristen Shea. I just read this a month ago. She just published it. If this is all new to you, you're like, funnel, what's that? Or this idea about convert and build no like trust factor. Excellent book. Great start. Not affiliated, no commissions or anything here like that. Gives you a chance to go and get that, and kind of ground yourself in some of this knowledge about how you help clients or potential clients overcome the hurdles in the top of the funnel, because a lot of what social media is doing is just pouring them into the top, what Sylvia's talking about. Then you capture their email, and then you nurture in the middle of the funnel by showing up, adding value, demonstrating your expertise, and then ultimately they convert at the bottom. Very few people, like we said earlier, like dive all the way through and book a call, become a
Yeah.
client right away. So you got to find ways to meet them at each of those. Social media is great for filling the top, and then it's up to you to kind of
Yeah.
nurture from there.
And I use mostly stories to nurture my leads, because stories, so on Instagram, you have reels, which is a lot of people can see. Your stories are only going to be watched by your ideal clients.
Yep.
So I'll use stories to kind of nurture them and to show them behind the scenes how I'm helping a client save on taxes. And like, if I'm like, do you want the same? Book a call, right? I'm giving them, instead of, I read this from Dan Locke. There's so many Dans lately. Dan Locke, and he talked about, don't when you're getting on a call with a prospect or when you're sharing stories, don't focus on ROI, return on investment. Focus on COI, cost of inaction. So that's something that like blew my mind, and it works. Like if I'm on my stories and I'm showing my clients like, look, now I'm buying treasury bonds for people, and it's a guaranteed, if, as long as I'm holding it, I have all the disclosures, but as long as I'm holding it until maturity. Obviously stocks are not guaranteed, but treasury bonds, if you hold them to maturity, they are guaranteed by the US government. And I'm explaining like, oh, I have a client, she had $100,000 in her cash. Thanks to me, like I was able to buy some bonds because I don't know what the Fed is going to do in about 20 minutes, if they're going to raise it by 75 bibs, we'll see. But I'm giving them the cost of inaction. What is the
Hmm.
cost of you not working with me? And another, so I do that a lot. I show them how much I'm saving my business owners on taxes by doing tax optimization, Roth conversions, S corps, home deductions, all these legal, 100% legal strategies. But it's that, and for me that's worked really well in stories.
Yes, beautifully said. Because again, you're solving their pain points. You're giving them tangible action. Because financial planning, let's face it, is very intangible. It's hard to define what it is. If people have had exposure to it, often it's the slimy salesman experience. Didn't have a great, part of that. And then stories, stories, stories. I helped a client do this, because then you're allowing them to see themselves in that working relationship with you.
Absolutely. And don't another tip, and you guys should definitely do this, is sell every single day. Do not, I used to, when I first started my business, I was like, especially if there's women out here, we're very like, oh, I don't want to be salesy. I don't want to like blah, blah, blah. You're not salesy at all. Like, don't, if you're embarrassed because maybe your mom is following, your friends are following, you think people are looking at you and they're going to make fun of you, either block them or remove them from your thing. And every single day, literally, I literally either try to have people book a call with me or go into my funnel to get my free training every single day. And when I started doing this, that's when I truly saw my business explode, because every single day I was showing up and I was like, get into my book a call, and get into my funnel. And that is something that if you have a problem around sales, like either get a coach or something, or you can just, for me, it helped me just looking at other people doing it, other Instagram girls that I follow were doing it. And I was like, you know what, I'm going to do it. And it felt really uncomfortable at first. But at the end of the day, you can educate people, and that's really good, because I think education is to show people that you're an expert. But you always want to focus on three things when you're doing social media. Number one is going to be content to like education, like educational content, so that people think of you as the expert. Content that's going to be a little bit polarizing and shareable. So content that's going to help you grow and get people to see, that can be polarizing quotes, things that are a little bit edgy. And then number three is sales content. So those three types of content: content to grow, content to sell, and content to basically build your brand, like education. Those are the three types of content that you should be focusing on. So don't focus so much on educating people and hoping that they're going to book a call, because they're not. You have to tell them to book a call. You have to tell them to sell. And so don't be afraid to do that, because that's what, at the end of the day, your followers are not paying your bills. It's the people that are booking the call that are paying your bill.
Well, that's where you
So
have the most impact when you have those one-on-one relationships. So I always think of it as like I'm telling people how I can help them, right?
exactly, exactly. So there's a bunch of questions in here, and I don't know
Yeah.
if we'll be able to get to all of
Let's,
them.
let's get Chris in here. Yeah.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for the great content. I don't know about you attendees, but the energy from you, Sylvia and Daniel, was off the charts. So thank you so much. And I think we're just going to start with the live questions, if you guys don't mind, and then we'll jump right into those pre-submitted questions. So I'm going to go ahead and start publishing these so that the audience can see what these questions are as well. So it looks like the first question, oh, and I'm covering up Sylvia. Here we
It's all right. I don't look that good. So
Well, on LinkedIn, sort of, because I had a lot of connections from my Air Force days, but on the widow side, zero. I mean, I started with zero there because it took me a while to build that following. And on Facebook groups, obviously, when you show up in a group, people are opting to be there. So that one, show up. And there's 1,000 people. Great. I have 1,000 people that I'm kind of talking to. What about you, Sylvia?
yes. So when I started my Instagram, I started from scratch. I created a new profile because, and I'll tell you something. So on my private Instagram, I have like 18,000 followers, but nobody like they don't buy. Like they're just not buying. But where on my business Instagram, the one that I use for business, I have like 4,000. But those are my ideal audience, and I'll go in there and actually clean it up a little bit to remove followers, because when you post something, only 10% of your audience is going to see it. At least that's how it was last year. Probably this year it's less. And if it doesn't do well, and if like it's not your ideal clients that are seeing it, they're not going to engage, and then not people are not going to see it. So I would focus, every couple months, kind of go into your following and clean things up a little bit, or start from scratch. It's better for you. And again, let me repeat it. It's better for you to have 100 really good followers, because you're going to have a better engagement and more people are going to see it, than to have 4,000 followers that are not your ideal client.
100%. So if you're coming from a non-niche standpoint, it may make sense to create new social media followings to build that.
Yeah. Don't be afraid to start from zero.
go. Awesome. And we'll move to the next question here from Donovan Carson. Thanks for submitting the question, Donovan. Do you use hashtags? How do you decide which ones to grow audience?
So yes, I do a little bit. I don't use them a lot. They're not as important as they used to be. And at the end of the day, what's the most important for social media is watch time. Or even if you don't get a like, if someone is looking at your post or your reel multiple times, the algorithm is going to know that that's higher quality content, and it's going to push it out to more people. So you can use like a couple hashtags. You don't have to do the 30 hashtags like you used to. That's just, for me, it's been a waste of time, and I just get more spam, to be honest, the more with these like 30 hashtags. So I'll just use like small business owner, self-employed, tax saving, something like that, something that's very targeted. And that's it. Just don't overdo it. What about you,
Yeah,
Dan?
I would echo the same for LinkedIn. It's become less and less important. It's more important in like the engagement with the people that you have. And one of the ways you can do it is I've seen some people in LinkedIn, they'll have their small group of people who will comment and post, or you tag them. Again, get that early engagement so it goes out faster.
All right, jumping back in here. All right, this next question from Cecil Staton. Cecil, how we doing today? How do you discover where your niche hangs out?
Trial and error. I
Yeah.
mean, self-described groups can often have that, but that goes back to the idea of just pivoting, flexing, trying, experimenting.
Yeah. Cecile, feel free to let us know like what niche you're thinking about, because maybe then we can all brainstorm and help you. But for me, my niche, when people started coming to me, they told me that they were like part of masterminds groups, and at the end of the day, just try to get on the phone with people, and you'll learn way more than you can from anything else, from like you just psychologically thinking what your niche wants.
Yes.
So get them on the phone, and then even ask them like, what masterminds are you part of? What do you do on the weekends? Do you do anything during the week? Any church, like whether you go to church or things like that? But they will tell you.
Yeah. Yep. Interview as many ideal clients who could potentially, and then just source their ideas.
Yeah.
Listen to how they describe themselves too.
Yeah. And look at who they're following too, right? So my ideal clients, most of them are small business owners, self-employed. They're following a lot of like big coaches, mentors, things like that. So I'm following them too, and kind of see that's where they're hanging out, and then their Facebook groups, things like that.
Excellent. Thank you for that question. Jumping to the next one from Randall Messick. All right. Can you both describe why your client selected you?
Hmm.
Randall, I'm freaking awesome.
Yeah, I mean, because they believe that I could solve their problem in a way that made sense for them, right? So showing up and building that trust factor ahead of time oftentimes led them to be much more ready to say yes. But why? Because they have a pain point that I can solve. And going back to the emotions, right? I'm not giving them a financial plan. It's helping them have confidence and peace of mind, and the ability to have better relationships with their spouse, their families, right? Pick up the pieces of their life.
Yeah. And honestly, because I'm there, like my clients selected me because I'm where they're hanging out and I'm pretty personable and I get along with them. It's a really good vibe. And so, and I don't have that much competition right now in terms of like financial plan, like women doing kind of like working with business owners, coaches, and doing all the tax strategy and things like that. So when people come to me, they're like, I don't know, I didn't know this existed because I'm not doing the typical financial plans. I'm actually doing what they actually needed,
Yep.
which is a lot of cash flow, QuickBooks, tax savings, and I only do like 5% of investments. I do investments because that's why they want me for it, but it's really looking at, as you work with them, you'll see what they really struggle with, and then you just need to shift your services to cater to them, right? A lot of, and this happened to me when I first started my business. I was like, I want to sell this here to the market, and then the market didn't buy. And it wasn't until I actually the prospects would come to me and I would listen to like the issue, that this other issue, that I'm like, okay, let me start. So in my VIP days now, I don't do like a typical financial plan. I'm literally helping them doing a forecast for their business, doing setting up their QuickBooks, literally saving them on taxes, like doing tax strategy, things like that. Not a lot of financial advisors are doing what I'm doing because that's not who their target audience is. And so at the end of the day, word comes out and
It's the
people
beauty of
talk.
a niche. And when you
Yes.
get narrow, especially, it gets even prettier.
Yeah. Yes.
Awesome. Great answers, people. And we'll jump up to Michael Porcelain. So we're going to jump. Oh, whoopsies. Sorry about that, Michael. Go ahead and publish your question real quick. All right. And I'll read myself. So I don't know if you folks can scroll and read this. So,
Okay. All right. So, compliance, right? Caveat: I am not a compliance expert. I know my own state rules and have worked with the great, amazing XYPN compliance people, right? So, um, ABC test: are you in the business of giving advice? Are you, talking about investments, and are you doing it for compensation? So much of the work that I'm doing, right, in these social media groups and everything else, it's education. People are not paying me; they're not clients. All right, so de minimis, no. I mean, I follow de minimis rules when people sign an actual client agreement, when they have paid me, when they have become a client. So, am I registered in 50 states? No, I'm registered in 3. Um, and then with those Facebook groups, so this is an amazing tool. Another plug for XYPN Tech Stack. XYPN Archive allows me to go in and archive these groups. But again, back to my point, right? Most of what I'm doing there is content and education, little to no promotion. I don't think I've ever said the name of my RIA. I will occasionally mention I'm a fee only financial planner. I'm a CFP. I specialize in working with these things. Those people then come and look for me on their own. They Google Daniel Kopp financial planner, or they click over to my Facebook page where I have my personal profile, and they can easily navigate to my firm website that way. So I'm archiving it to be extra safe, but at the same time, I'm not worried because it's not traditional advertising in the sense, right? I'm helping, I'm being engaged in a communication, serving, doing things like that. What do you do, Sylvia?
Absolutely. So number one, XY Archive is awesome. The thing is that I don't think they archive stories. But Instagram does archive everything that you've ever posted. So you can actually download the data from Instagram itself and archive all of that. In terms of, I also have disclosures on my Instagram saying this is not financial advice. This is for educational purposes only. And I basically have the same disclosures that I have on my website, and I will, every couple of days I'll post them on my stories, but I have them as on my highlights, and I'll tell people, remember, even though I'm a financial advisor, I don't know your specific situation. This is for educational purposes only. Please consult with a
Yeah.
registered and things like that. So, and then I also stay away from showing performance. So I don't talk
Yes.
about,
Always.
I don't guarantee returns. The only thing you can truly guarantee now is the bonds from the US government, as long as you hold them until maturity. But you always say like something along the lines like, if the US government goes bankrupt, you could lose all your money, right? But then, you know what I mean? So I try to
Yeah.
like cover your butt and put more disclosures on there than you maybe feel like you need to, and always remind people that it's educational purposes only and to not take it as financial advice.
One last thing I'll add there. I didn't emphasize it earlier. I am never, ever recommending to people go do X, Y, and Z. I'm saying you should consider. Here's some things to think about. Here's a great resource over here. Go check out this IRS pub, right? Educational, informational. Whereas the difference is when I have a client who's paying me, right? Sylvia, go do X, Y, and Z because this is what makes the best sense for your situation.
Exactly. Yes. So yeah, just don't promise, and you'll be fine. And at the end of the day, just don't say anything that is misleading, and disclose, and do not be misleading.
All right, folks, we'll do one last question from the group today. So I'll go ahead and publish this from Rich Gar Arzad, excuse me. Can you give us an idea of how much spent on Facebook ads, prospect flow, and then client conversion?
Sylvia, I haven't really done
Yeah.
Facebook ads. I'll let you answer
So
this one, then I'll talk about Google ads.
I'm gonna tell you guys something you don't want to hear, but in Facebook ads, 500 at the minimum per month, because and ideally you should be spending 1,000 in the beginning a month, in order to be able to really, because the way we run Facebook ads is you have different campaigns, and so if you have such a small amount of money, you're not going to be able to test things, and at the end of the day you want to test, and you want to have enough of a budget to be able to make sure that it's relevant. And so for Facebook, an ideal range would be, 500 to 1,000, and just to have enough data, because at the end of the day you're buying, right, you're paying that much money, and you may not convert, but you are getting so much data, like what are people liking, how are they clicking. For me, I realized, when I was first starting out, I was like, oh, I don't see a conversion, but then I saw exactly like what was wrong with my webinar. Was it my page not converting, and I literally fast tracked it substantially. And so yeah, Facebook ads are great. I'm actually going to be rerunning them now for end of year things. So
So I've done primarily Google ads. I don't spend as much as Sylvia. I don't think I've ever spent more than $300 a month in Google ads. And partly that just goes on search volume, right? Because search Google ads is pay per click. So you
yeah.
can show up in a million people's ads, but you only pay for the click. And if there's just not enough search volume for that, then, notionally I could want to spend that much, but not. So I've usually historically spent about $250 to $300 a month. I'm pulled up a slide here from what I talked about last time. Um, so that on average, that gets about 90 people to click on an ad. About 40% of them bounce off, so that's 60% stay. So that's about 54 people. Of those, around 6 to 8 will give me their email or download a freemium or some other trigger to move further down the funnel where I can drip on them. About 2 to 3 people will immediately book that meeting or contact me, send me an email, text, phone call, something like that. About half of those are a great fit, and then those people convert. So if I spend about that $250 to $300 a month, and my average first year client fee is right around 5,000, so that's an 80% conversion ratio at the very end of that ideal client. So I spent 250 to 300, and I earned roughly 4,000 on average. Okay, so this is one of the great things. And again, you must be a narrow niche. I cannot emphasize that enough. You cannot make this work if you're spending 30 to 40 to $50 a click trying to compete with, Rick Edelman and Merrill Lynch and all the big guys out there with certified financial planner near me. It's just not a work. Do a niche and you can narrow that down.
Daniel, you said so for $300 you get one client, and your average fee is basically when you spend $300 you can expect to earn one ongoing client for $5,000 a year
On average, yes.
on average. That's what's awesome about Daniel is that he knows his numbers. Most funny and there's ways to reverse calculate to do this, but I think a lot of the times you need to have the data so you can, maybe if Daniel he knows, right, that if he were to spend 600, he will probably get two clients. So the only reason why he's spending 300 is because he doesn't want to grow as quickly. Is that would that be fair?
Yes, but also search volume. Like I could want to spend a lot more, but just there's not enough people searching for terms that I'm bidding for keywords. Whereas Facebook, you have a much, again, with social media networks like LinkedIn ads, Facebook, all that kind of stuff, you have a much more unlimited audience. Whereas Google is, you're only showing up for people who are searching.
That's correct. Yeah.
Awesome. And again, guys, thank you so much for this great webinar, all the awesome content attendees. Thank you for jumping on with us. And again, we will be getting you this recording. And if anybody needs to learn a little bit more about, how Sylvia and Daniel maybe got some of their secret sauce through XYPN best practices, please feel free. We're going to be dropping a link in the chat for you guys to learn a little bit more about the ins and outs of memberships. But Daniel and Sylvia, thank you both so much for jumping on today. I know we're already getting some rave reviews from you guys, and it really was a pleasure to have you both on. And when you guys click back to the lobby, you'll see a feedback survey pop up. So when you leave the webinar, please, if you could, just take a moment to complete that. We would love to know what you guys' thoughts are. But Daniel and Sylvia, any last words?
Yes, connect with me on Instagram. It's Wealth Financial Advisor, because we have a lot of really fun goodies coming up soon, that we're working on. So would love to connect.
Yeah, I would love to connect with you on LinkedIn and get to know each other better. And then come to XYPN Live next year. I'd love to shake hands, get to know you. And if you join the network or something like that, um, you know,
Use our
re-
codes.
yes, reach out.
We want the membership, everybody.
Yeah, I don't even know what my code is, but just say Daniel and Sylvia so we can get
Yeah.
an ROI.
Absolutely. Well, folks, we're going to wrap it up. Daniel, Sylvia, thank you guys again so much. And, folks, we hope to see you on the webinar next month. Thanks again, guys.
Bye.